we'd made this movie called Clerks, and there was no nudity in it, there was no violence in it, there wasn't a single explosion, there was barely any movement within the film. You know, it's a really flat movie. But what there was a lot of colorful language, a lot of people speaking frankly, and not really so much in terms of what people would do to other people. You know, it wasn't like people, you know, talking about doing harm to one another. It was just guys sitting around talking about fucking. And then the rating came back as an NC-17, which, you know, kind of blew our minds because we're like, what? Like, based on dudes sitting around talking about sex? Sad dudes at that? You know, dudes who aren't getting laid? Like, do we really want to make people feel worse? People that look like me, who can't get pussy, that, you know, you can't even talk about pretending to get pussy in a movie?
They even gave it to Pedro Almodovar for his last movie, and something they said, in the blowjob scene, you could move sideways, not vertical. I've never heard of a sideways blowjob. Maybe that's cunnilingus. I don't know. But it seems like you have to go up and down if you're giving a blowjob. So, I mean, people have jobs for this?
The original title for the South Park movie was South Park All Hell Breaks Loose. And we really liked that title. We thought it was kind of clever. It's kind of what happens in the movie All Hell Breaks Loose. They wouldn't let us do it because the word hell was in it. You can't have hell in a title. Titles need to be G-rated. So we came back and we said, what about Hellraiser? Or like Hell's Angels. Okay, we can find a million movies that have the word hell in it. And they said, no, that's animated, so we don't want the word hell in it. So we changed it to South Park Bigger, Longer, and Uncut. And they approved that. And then about 2 weeks, this is a true story, and about 2 weeks later they called Scott Rudin, who produced the film with us, and said, basically, we just figured out what the title was. You got to change it. And Scott's like, nope. He said, smart. He said, we've already printed up, 100,000 posters. We can't go back now.
There's a different group about the title Pecker. When we registered it, they came back and said I couldn't call it that. So I went out to somewhere in the valley, this office, with a lawyer, and I gave a speech saying that, no, pecker is not a rude word. Nobody's ever said, suck my pecker to a date. It's not anti-woman. No woman says, wow, what a big pecker you got. No angry child ever carved the word pecker in his school desk. And I said, how about Free Willy? How about Shaft? I named all these, and they said, okay, I won. They had to leave the room, and they come back in, and they looked at me, so I knew they were going to, it wasn't like they turned their head. And so they said, okay.
You find out pretty quickly that you never receive an NC-17. According to the media, you were always slapped with an NC-17. It's a very violent act, violent imagery. It's never something as simple as like the film received an NC-17 rating. It's just like Clerks, a Miramax film, was slapped with an NC-17 rating. I read that in print so many times, I was just like, God, my cheek should sting from the amount of times that I read that we've been slapped with this NC-17.
For instance, in the South Park movie, there's a German shit-eating video that the kids are watching on the internet, and that's like the dirty thing they got off the internet. Originally, it was like a woman filleting a horse, and that was like, it was that joke. Like a kid sees his mom with a horse, right? And then that was the original thing. They said, you can't do that. And we didn't show it. I mean, it was all implied. I mean, it was like you saw the horse, you saw her, but you never saw the act. You can't do that. It's bestiality. Now, meanwhile, we have bestiality jokes on South Park like every other week. And I was like, nope, can't do it. So, all right, so we changed this German Scheisse video. This is like a horribly depraved thing. That passed. What's more depraved, a shit-eating video or filleting a horse? But to the MPAA, the shit-eating one was less depraved.
Well, in the Green Band Trail, there was a few things. Was it yodeling in the canyon? Or I think it was sneezing in the cabbage. I forget which one, but one of them, I think they just didn't know what it meant, basically. And I'm not saying that they should, But I think, yes, and we got it pretty close where she was, when doing the hokey pokey, almost picked up the bottle. Somebody threw the bottle, she caught it, and she started to go like this, and I thought, I was amazed how much we got by in the trailer. That's what I couldn't believe. Yeah, yodeling in the canyon. I thought, it didn't say a four-letter word.
Since they don't tell you what the offending material is, you could wind up cutting shit that they're like, well, we didn't care about that, but, I'm glad it's gone. Now let's see if he finds it. It's like a fucking treasure hunt. And it's almost like playing hot, cold, where you're like, hot, 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 warm, warm, cold, cold. Oh, hot, hot, you're on fire. And they really barely lead the horse to water. And so it's tough to take a drink. You just don't know what you're shooting at. Like in the case of Clerks, we were like, what is it? What got us the NC-17? Is it like the cat shitting on the counter in the litter box? Is it the chick fucking the dead guy in the back room? Is it the conversation about, you know, sucking 37 dicks? And then we were like, wait a second, maybe our movie is NC-17. So they never tell you. You really, it's kind of like, you know, teenage fumbling at sex, where you're like, does this feel good? And you're doing weird shit, and she's like, no, it's fucking horrible. And you've scarred a woman for life.
The fate of our world, you know, like the last 3 years of our lives been doing this movie, is some lady's going to watch it tonight and decide if it passes the test where America is going to be okay with seeing it. You know, it's like, I don't know.
But now, is that the chair? I mean, Joan Graves?
I have no idea.
You don't even know?
I don't have any idea. Okay. And that sounds familiar, but I don't know who it was. And again, you don't know. I mean, that's the thing, is like at the end of the day, it could be one guy sitting in a room smoking weed and watching it and giving it ratings. It's probably not. I mean, they probably do have some sort of system.
But why they felt the need to create this kind of middle rating between R and X is beyond me. You know, it just never really made sense, because unless you're seeing penetration, it's an R-rated movie. To me, to this day, it still stands as an R-rated movie. Like Tie Me Up, Tie Me Down was one of the first NC-17s, and Henry and June. I see any penetration in those movies. If I'm seeing some people miming sex, being on top of each other, boobs flying, asses in the air, whatever, even if you're seeing shots of genitalia, as long as there's no penetration, that to me is an R-rated movie.
You know, Hollywood would show Spread Eagle pink if they could. Everybody would. People go to the movies to imagine everyone naked. That's one of the main reasons people go to the movies.
If I was somebody's 16-year-old daughter, we went to see something like Jersey Girl, and they talk about, if anybody went to see Jersey Girl, it would have been great. Such a fucking hypothetical fantasy world. But let's say in this hypothetical fantasy world, I was a 16-year-old girl, and I went to see that movie with my father. And, you know, they talk about masturbation, and not even very graphically, but they talk about masturbation in that diner scene. And then after the movie, my father starts talking to me about masturbation. I would immediately, like, call DYFS, or the Division of Youth and Family Services, and be like, this motherfucker's saying gross things to me. Like, I don't want to talk to my old man about this shit. Like, I'll go talk to my friends about it and shit. You see that movie? And, you know, I remember being a teenager. We barely talked about masturbation in those days. Everyone denied doing it. Now you grow up, you get to a place where you're like, yeah, I jerk off all the time.
And you also have to get the posters approved by the MPA, a different group of people. And in it, Selma has very large breasts in the ad. That ad was fine in New York and the big cities. We had to have a smaller one in the Midwest, and in Utah, very small breasts. I'm not making this up. There's people whose jobs do this. And I think we were the very first green band trailer ever for an NC-17 movie. With trailers, you have to get them rated too. Green band means that it can play with any rated movie. And if children in the audience, you can show the movie. So technically, even though theaters wouldn't, we could show the trailer for A Dirty Shame with Benji Unleashed. Now, we didn't. But we could play it everywhere, and it was a good trailer, because then there's the red band trailer, which you can only show with an R-rated movie. And theater owners never play them. They don't ever put them out. They don't do it. So, that was it. And so what I had to do for Blockbuster and these things was do a neuter version. I had to put a spin on it. But what you have to do today for the bond companies and the cable sales when you make a movie, they give you this list in the beginning that has every single thing that you couldn't be on television. So we released it. It has to have a different title. So it just came out this week. A Dirty Shame, the NC-17 theatrical version, and A Dirty Shame, the neuter version, which is rated R. And they still, I mean, it passed the first time with it because there's nothing in it. It's the baby version. It's for if your entire family decided you wanted to have 8-year-old kids over for a birthday party and show them a movie about sex addicts. This is the film for your family. There's no reason. It's a bait and switch. It's to trick people in Walmart into buying this film. I heard of that. They don't know there's another one. It's for the, you know, the most least discriminative, stupid shopper or insane collector.
This film is really about the fear we have about losing our children to adulthood, to even adolescence.
So you submitted to the ratings board?
Do you want to know what their reaction was?
Yeah.
Their reaction was, I mean, I can give you 3 scenes specifically. One scene is a man showing the teenage boy some heterosexual pornography. And there's some quick cutaways to the porn film, and you don't even see any genitalia, nothing. It's just like a head going up and down, and you see that in our films. Come on. The other one is an adult man having sex with an adult woman in a house, and he has a hard hat on, and he's doing her against the door. Okay, 3-second shot. Seen that in The Sopranos, seen that in our movies. And then the big one that they were completely appalled by was the line when the Brian Cox character, the pederast, has the boy in his lair, his living room, and he tells him,
I'm the best cocksucker in the whole Western Hemisphere.
I believe that if it was a woman saying that to a boy, we would have gotten, or teenage boy, the same kid, Howie Blitzer, and a 50-year-old woman that was like, say, drug dealer in the neighborhood and she liked young kids, we would have gotten it in R. Take a look at American Beauty. That had an intergenerational relationship, and it had the child in that reveal her breasts on camera to Kevin Spacey. My film has no nudity between them. I would say that, explain that. What is the difference? And I think the difference is that it's homosexual, not hetero. But I know one thing, I want the right to be able to make the call for my kids or young people, you know, whatever, to see a film. Not have some, you know, board that's put together by who knows who, probably biased in some way, for them to decide what my kids could see or not.
You and Kelvin against me and Jamal. Oh man, he is a girl. Hey, girls can't play no ball. Ball better than you.
Well, the thing that was really important to me was that 13, 14-year-old girls to be able to see this movie, to feel good about themselves, to feel empowered by the lead character, Monica, and what she achieves. So it was very important to me that I got a PG-13, and it came back with an R rating, they said, because of the love scene that's in there between the two characters. The problem was also I didn't know why it got an R, so what am I supposed to trim? What was so offensive? Because to me, the majority of the scene was just on their two faces. Then we got back the note that it was because of the moment of penetration we see.
And here was a film trying to show a woman experiencing the first time, and though it's painful, there's a certain point where it becomes less painful, and it becomes this moment between her and her, you know, the person she's in love with. And I think that's when it was really frustrating.
The moment we got the PG-13 was when we cut off all joy in the scene, you know, so, you know, draw your own conclusion.
And I'm just trying to imagine myself having a daughter of that age and taking her to this movie. I felt like this actually, in my mind, would have been a beautiful way to kind of even start conversation with my daughter about that type of thing.
You know, we were showing it to teenagers down at Magic Theater in Crenshaw. And I remember I saved it because I got this card back and it says, what did you like most about the movie? And, you know, this was a 17-year-old boy and he wrote, it taught me how to love. And that just blew me away. And I always, you know, I like to think part of it was that scene and the way that the character Quincy behaved in that scene, and that guys could watch that and see how to behave with a woman the first time. So then, of course, I'm thinking back to all the films I had seen recently that showed that, and two that came to mind immediately was Cider House Rules and Meet Joe Black. It's obvious here they have the moment of penetration and continue much longer. You know, is it because my characters are black? I mean, obviously throughout the years there's been such a problem with, you know, portraying black sexuality on screen, and that's always been an issue. So is that clouding their minds? Does it suddenly seem a little more sexual because it's these two black characters as opposed to Brad Pitt, you know, or Charlize Theron?
I just wanted to confirm that, I mean, only Cara will view this, right? Only people in Cara? Okay. Right, and it never gets copied or anything like that. Oh, okay. Okay, well, that sounds great. Was there a copy made of it? No copy. So there's no copy at the MPAA of the film at this point. Okay. You do have a copy of the film. I received very explicit assurances that no copy would be made, and that nobody but the Raiders would see the film. Well, I'm kind of puzzled by that because I mean, there was we didn't authorize that, did we? Right. So why was a copy made without authorization? But do you normally do that? Have you ever done that? You know, I'm very troubled by that, I have to say. This is so caught me off guard. Can I just think about this and give you a call back? Okay. Bye now. Those motherfuckers copied my film.
Yep.
Jesus fucking Christ.
Those piracy fighting assholes pirated our movie.
They copied the film. They copied the film. He called me up to say, look, I know you asked Joan if a copy was made of the film. And he said, it's in my safe, you don't have to worry about it. But I said, has this ever been done before? He said, well, yes. I said, has it ever been done unauthorized? No, not to his knowledge.
Yeah, right.
And I said, did you copy the whole film? And he said, yes.
The MPAA has a huge building in Washington, D.C., filled with people who are manipulating the levers of the American policy process. So talking to congressmen, talking to people in the administration, talking to other lobbyists. It's really quite striking when you go and you see the MPAA's building in D.C. They've got a building full of lobbyists there. And what many people may not realize is just what a big commitment that is relative to a lot of other industries, right? I was just talking to someone today about the fact that Apple Computer has one guy in Washington, one guy in a rented office, right? And you compare that to the MPAA and their building full of lobbyists. The movie studios have been very aggressively trying to get veto power over new television technology. They want to make sure that the digital televisions of tomorrow are locked down, include content protection mechanisms to prevent you from being able to make copies and move copies and do lots of things that the studios don't want you to do. And so you have a situation where, okay, if those televisions are all locked down, how does somebody who wants to take clips from television in order to create parodies, criticism, commentary, how do you do that? The technology won't let you. It's all locked down. There's nothing on the market you can buy that would let you do that. And in fact, doing it may itself be illegal. So in a world, you know, most people are familiar with the way The Daily Show does cut-ins of stuff that they've lifted off the cable news, right? In a future world where all television technology is locked down, it'll be a lot harder for The Daily Show to take those clips to make fun of what they view as the follies of cable news. If you care about piracy, if you want to stop piracy, the answer is not to try to, own the entire technology field, to dictate to innovators what they can and can't build, and to sue individual movie fans as pirates. The answer is make a great product. Make a product that's so compelling that it's easier, more convenient, worth it to buy the product instead of trying to find some, gray market way to get it. When you ask somebody, what do I stand to lose if the motion picture studios have the ability to crack down on copying movies? Well, the answer is you may never know what you lost. Right? Because you may never know the great new technologies that never got built or got built in ways that weren't built for your interests, with your interests in mind, but were instead built to the specifications that a Hollywood executive dictated. It's very important that technology companies be able to develop the things that the consumer really wants, and perhaps more importantly, that consumers have the ability to tinker, experiment, and play with those technologies, right? I mean, the thing everyone always forgets is that Sony thought the VCR was primarily going to be used for time shifting. We all know that's not what it's good for. It's good for going to Blockbuster and renting movies, right? But it took some time in the hands of consumers for that device to sort of find its highest and best use. And the key to that is lots of innovation, lots of experimentation, lots of devices coming to market. If you had gone back to 1972 and you had asked the average American, do you care about the ability to time shift television? They would have looked at you like, what are you talking about? I've never seen such a thing. I don't even know what that would mean. And you get the same look from people who've never used a TiVo, right? You explain to them what a TiVo is and they say, well, why would I want that? And it's only once you're familiar with the technology, you realize the value it can provide, that it then becomes indispensable. Right? People, once they've had TiVo, once they're familiar with VCRs, they can't imagine going back to a world without them. The American copyright law system has been around a long time, and it's always given copyright owners a great deal of leverage. And it's a simple answer, right? Copyright law is made by and for lobbyists on behalf of industries. Right? Consumers have almost never been, certainly not in the last 20 or 30 odd years, have never been sort of at the bargaining table and at the forefront of what legislators are thinking about when they're passing copyright laws. And that's a shame. So copyright, for many years has already favored copyright owners a great deal. In the last 10 years, the Motion Picture Association has pushed that envelope further than ever before. So to take a few examples, they pushed for a 20-year copyright term extension that was passed in the mid-90s. And what that meant is works that were already nearly 70, 80, 90 years old, things that would normally have fallen into the public domain, now are going to be under copyright for 20 more years. And of course, corporate owners, which never die, of course, they get now 95 years of protection. So that has two effects. First of all, it means the stuff that's created today essentially will never go into the public domain in our lifetime. Right? We'll be dead and buried long before this season's episodes of Lost are ever available for free use. But it also means our heritage is also locked up longer. So film is a great example. The age of motion pictures really began in the early parts of the 20th century. Almost the entire history of film is still under copyright. Right? Now, sure, you can get some films from the teens and the 20s that are in the public domain, but essentially all of the heart of the motion picture experience remain under copyright and will now, thanks to this copyright term extension, remain under copyright for 20 more years at least. So Steamboat Willie, the first Mickey Mouse picture, for example, is sort of the benchmark. Everyone says Mickey will never fall into the public domain because Walt Disney will rush to Congress and get an extension every time Steamboat Willie is in danger of falling into the public domain. Disney is one of the most extreme defenders of sort of a maximum copyright point of view. They're very known for it. They're very stern enforcers of their copyrights. But at the same time, they also, in their animated features, borrow liberally from stuff that's in the public domain. They borrow for, things like Beauty and the Beast, The Little Mermaid. These are all based on stories that are lifted from the public domain from prior creators. And yet, Disney is saying, well, we're not going to let Mickey Mouse, we're not going to let any of those characters fall into the public domain. And moreover, if you try to do a Beauty and the Beast movie, you better believe that Disney is going to come a-calling and it's going to say, well, wait a minute, Beauty and the Beast, that's ours. Even if you point out to them, well, actually, that's a kind of old story. It's not actually yours. Same with The Little Mermaid, same with a lot of the other things, Pocahontas, right? Things that Disney has appropriated itself. They have invested so heavily in lobbying in Washington for so many years that, frankly, a lot of members of Congress have never heard the other side. They've never, when you go up there to Congress and you talk to them, they really think this is just about piracy, piracy, piracy. The movie business is on the brink of being destroyed. Because that's what they hear over those staff lunches every month, year in and year out. I mean, we're constantly fighting these issues, trying to explain to people why it matters, why it's not just about piracy, why the MPAA member companies are not on the brink of extinction. Far from it. They are fantastically profitable. But I'm not sure Congress has heard that yet.
On behalf of South by Southwest, a short Q&A session with Mr. Kirby Dick.
Thank you.
submit to them? And is this now considered a totally different piece, or is it just a recut?
It's an interesting question. I mean, basically, the film was pretty close to the way you saw it up to the point that I submitted it. I mean, there are some changes, but in terms of the amount of sex that it was in the film, or the amount of things that they might look at in terms of ratings, it was basically the same. For the MPAA's perspective, once I changed the film, I no longer can use the NC-17 rating. But it's really funny. Everything is done, no email correspondence. What they do send is this little piece of paper that's about 5.5 by 8.5. It's green. It looks like it was done, it was printed up in the late 70s or 80s with this NC-17 stamp on it. And, when we got it, we thought, oh, how quaint. And then when Joan called up and said, we hear you're changing the film. Now, you can't use the NC-17 rating, and you have to send back this piece of paper. And we're just like, what? We're not sending it back.
Recently about the MPAA making an unauthorized copy of the movie. Well, when they had it, can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, the MPAA made an unauthorized copy of the film that I submitted to get rated. And of course, this is the organization that is, the sort of the champion of anti-piracy, decided to make basically pirate my movie. But what happened was, a couple days before I was going to submit the film, get a rating, I thought, they're not going to want to give this thing back. So I called them up and I said, look, I want to make sure there's no copies made of this. And they said, oh, no, there's no copies of this at all going to be made. In fact, the people on the staff in the ratings department don't even see the film, only the raters. I said, oh, great. And then when I was talking to Greg Geckner, the attorney, I asked him, did you see the film? He said, oh, yeah. And I said, okay. I didn't say anything. And then a few days later, I was at the appeals, and I went up to Joan Graves and I said, Joan, did Dan Glickman see the film? Yes. Okay, so then after, about 2 weeks later, I called up and I started thinking, well, no, Glickman's in Washington. They're in LA, so I started questioning her, where did he see it? Did he see it in the office? How did he see the whole thing? What did he think of it? And then I finally said, were there any copies made? And she said, well, not that I'm aware of. So a few days later, Greg Geckner called back and said, I have to tell you, we have made a copy of your film, but don't worry, it's safe in my vault.
What was your reaction when you found out who actually were on the appeals board, and what does that say about their complicity?
I actually knew, that it was all industry people. No one else knows that, really. I mean, that's what's surprising. And why do they have it that way? I mean, they control this system. The MPA doesn't really care one way or another whether there's a rating system. All they care about is if there's any kind of system, they have complete control over it so that they can get their films out. Now, if independent filmmakers or foreign filmmakers get caught up in this process, it makes them look to the rest of the country like, they're protecting society against smut or something like that. And so then, everybody leaves them alone. So it's an ingenious system, built on, this complete control using, secrecy, spin. I mean, these are the two elements of the rating system. If you look back and you say, well, where does this come from? If you look back to Valenti's past, and he came out of advertising, that's where the spin came from. And he came out of government, and that's where the secrecy came from. So this is this sort of unholy brood.
Doesn't the evolution of technology kind of lend to an obsolescence at this point?
It's an interesting question. I mean, again, this points to somewhat of the hypocrisy of the system. I mean, all the MPAA cares about is that there's a rating system that they control. Now, when a film comes out on DVD, it's NC-17, their companies can go ahead and distribute that and rake in the profits from that. In fact, it sets up their system even better. They now release a movie R, goes out in the theaters, and then they release an R in home video and in NC-17. So for the same amount of investment, they have two products. So it's completely hypocritical.
We have time for one more question.
Can we do a few more? We're doing a DVD. Is that possible? Oh, who wants to go home? Okay. I'm sorry.
Did you approach anyone in the film industry that didn't want to be on camera?
Well, many people. I mean, the amount of paranoia is phenomenal. I mean, it's like high school or something, It's so incredible. Nobody in the studio system at all would speak to us. I mean, people would say, they would tell us stories, and they say, no, we can't say it to you on camera, or we really support you, but we can't say it. But, what was really surprising is many independent filmmakers who'd come out publicly and, told their horror stories were not willing to go on camera. And they're afraid. They're legitimately afraid that that their next film might be impacted. Now, I actually think that the filmmakers in this film, and me as well, actually, this is my own naivete, I'm sure, but we're somehow inoculated because the press is going to pay attention to the next time one of their films goes through. So anyway, at least that's what I told them.
Speaking of sex and violence, do you think they're just reflecting American values by striking out all the sex and keeping the violence, or do you think there's some sort of more sinister directive from above saying, keep all that violence in there for particular reasons?
It's an interesting question. I mean, there is obviously, I'm sure, a relationship between capitalism and violence that you could, make a whole film on, and probably people have. But as far as the MPA is concerned, I mean, it is a violent society. Violent material sells. I mean, that is no reason to censor sex. I mean, it's interesting, even in terms of their attitudes toward. When this film came out, the MPA was asked. Cory Bernard, a representative of the MPA, was asked why they censor or why they restrict gay sex more than straight sex, and her response was pretty astounding. She said, we don't set the values, we reflect them, which I thought was horrifying because if it was a racist value, would they reflect that? If it was anti-Semitic, would they reflect that? I mean, it's basically an admission that they're participating in a homophobic structure. And yeah, so I mean, it's just, but if this were opened up, I mean, it would be much easier for pressure groups and that to kind of enter into the dialogue. There's no reason one very powerful trade organization and probably one of the most effective lobby groups in the country should control something that affects the entire country.
Do you think that possibly a new rating could be reformed in the way that in the 80s the PG-13 rating was added? Sort of a harder R+ could help alleviate the situation?
Roger Ebert and other people have kind of argued for this. I would much prefer to see this. I would much prefer to see a rating system that is not, that's not classified, that's descriptive. Then you can have, a short paragraph of what's in the film. I mean, people should know what's in the film, especially, even adults are sometimes sensitive to this material. They should know. I mean, it should be a system that's transparent. It should be a system that, where there's some training for the raters, and also where if there's not experts on the board, that they avail themselves of experts. Because there's been a lot of research and a lot of debate about the effect of violence on behavior. And I think pretty much the research shows that there is some impact. Now the question, I think, in my own mind, is how much. But it's a legitimate question that experts should be involved in. When it comes to sex, the impact of, viewing sexual material on adolescents, there's no evidence that there's any real effect. It's probably positive, actually. In this society, it's probably, if you think about it, the sex in all these films is really so benign. I mean, when I made that opening title sequence, we put it together without the boxes at first, and the first time I was going to view it, I sat back and I said, okay, great, this is all the deleted NC-17. This is going to be a hot 1.5 minutes. And I looked at it after it was done. It's like, what? This is what this whole thing is about. So, more sex, I think, is better.